Chapter 1. The Battle Begins. Quixote raised his sword high. He thought to himself, "This is my destiny. If I am to make it out alive, I must fight with all my heart." With that determination, he charged forward to meet his enemies head-on. Knight Quixote sprinted away from the metallic army, hoping to find some refuge in the boundless expanse of the universe. His strong legs pushed against the ground with powerful strides, but no matter how fast he ran, the robots seemed to find a way to follow. He knew he had to find a way to escape them, and fast. He could still hear their metallic feet stomping behind him, growing more and more distant, but his pursuers were relentless. He eventually stumbled upon a seemingly abandoned spaceship and decided to take shelter inside. Quickly, he scanned the cockpit for controls and pressed various buttons hoping the ship would launch. But when the ship took off, the robots were right behind them. Now, not only did he have to find a way to outrun the metallic army, but also find a way to hide or take them down. Quixote's brain was spinning as he looked out of the cockpit window to see the robots still tailing them. He had to think of something, and fast. Quixote rose from his seat and grabbed his trusty sword, Steel Fin, from the ship's armory. He checked the blade for scratches and chips, and the metal was still flawless. He was ready for battle. Through the cockpit window, he could see the robots still tailing them, slowly approaching the ship. He knew he would have to act fast to avoid being caught by the metal army. With a deep breath and his sword firmly held in both hands, he slowly approached the door. The door slowly opened, and Quixote stepped outside into the vastness of space. With no visible ground or walls, the robots had no visible point of reference, and so they didn't know which way to go. Quixote knew that he had to act fast and lunged at the robot closest to him. He swung his sword in a wide arc and sliced through the metal frame of the robot. The robot crackled and sparked as it broke into pieces and floated off into the infinite void. Chapter 2. Fighting Fire with Steel. Quixote bravely charged the second robot, wielding Steel Fin with all of his might. The robot had been expecting the attack and countered with a flurry of its own laser blasts, which Quixote only just managed to dodge. The laser blasts slammed into the side of the ship instead and tore away chunks of the hull. Quixote had no time to sit and marvel at the destruction, however, as the robot had moved in to deliver a devastating blow of its own. Steel Fin parried the mechanical arm just in time, and Quixote delivered a powerful kick, shoving the robot back and giving him time to think. He knew he had to take the fight to the robots if he wanted to survive and make it back home. He moved in quickly and tried to blockade the central control module with the blade of his vision. The robot fired more blasts, only for Quixote to dodge them in midair. He could feel the energy from the blasts searing through his clothes, but he held his ground. Steel Fin had done its job, and with a bang, the robot exploded into an array of sparks. All that remained was a few twisted pieces of metal. Quixote wasted no time and rushed towards the remaining robots, determined to finish what he started. But he soon realized that he was sorely outnumbered and outmatched. The robots continued to fire and dodge, buying time for their comrades. Quixote knew that he had to find a way to turn the tide of the battle. Quixote knew that the robots' numerical advantage had to be neutralized, and that a frontal assault on their main control center was the only way to win this battle. He grabbed the nearest robot and hurled it at the central control module, knocking it off its hinges and causing sparks to fly out from its circuits. The robots began to spin in circles, trying to find and target Quixote. He lunged at them, one by one, using every dirty tricks he could think of in order to outsmart them. As he continued to fight, the robots gradually began to slow and eventually stopped striking altogether. Quixote was victorious. He had destroyed the robots and saved the ship from being engulfed in a digital prison. With a sigh of relief, he stepped back, exhausted from the effort. But his adventure was not over yet, for ahead of him lay the central control module. He had to get inside and shut off the control system for good, or else the robots will be activated again. He cautiously approached the control module and prepared for the toughest battle yet. How will he get inside? Chapter 3. Smashing the Control System. Quixote gathered all the courage he had, withdrew his sword, and started pounding on the control system. He swung the blade at the various circuitry, wires, and switches. Sparks flew with each impact, and the furious energy from his attacks illuminated the dark chamber. He continued smashing away, ignoring the increased danger of getting electrocuted with each swing. Soon, pieces of the system were flying off in every direction. Quixote was determined to win this battle, no matter the cost. Finally, the control system gave way and the robot stopped functioning. It had taken over an hour, but he had finally destroyed the enemy. He stepped back, surprised at how easy it had been. It was almost too good to be true. Suddenly, he heard a loud scraping noise coming from the far side of the chamber. Quixote cautiously approached the source to find a large metal door. It had been concealed by the control system, and it seemed to be an entrance to further chambers. Quixote realized that he must have been so focused on destroying the robots, he had failed to notice it. He was now faced with a dilemma. Should he continue his journey and explore the hidden chamber, or try to find an escape route? Quixote carefully opened the door, expecting the worst. But surprisingly, he found himself standing in an empty room with 3 walls lined with strange blue-glowing crystals. He stepped closer and touched one of them. It felt like a giant key in his hand. What could this crystal possibly unlock? Suddenly, he heard a loud mechanical noise coming from the center of the room. A giant robotic figure was slowly rising up from the floor. Quixote stepped back and gasped in surprise. It was the Robo-Knight, and it was ready to fight. Quixote had no choice but to fight back. He raised his sword and started clashing with the robotic figure. Sparks flew from their swords, and the noise that echoed throughout the chamber was deafening. Quixote's swordsmanship was impressive, but the Robo-Knight simply kept coming at him, relentlessly. Just when Quixote began to tire, the Robo-Knight appeared to fire something from his chest. It was a key. Quixote just stared in awe as the key flew towards him and into his hands. He had found the key he was searching for. He quickly realized that if he wanted to unlock the entrance to the Emperor's chambers, he would have to first defeat the Robo-Knight. He steeled himself, took a deep breath, and charged forward. This was it, the final showdown. Suddenly, Quixote felt a rush of courage and strength inside him. He had a feeling that he could win this fight now. He raised his sword, took aim at the Robo-Knight, and with one final push he destroyed it. Chapter 4. Setting the Course for Victory. With the Robo-Knight destroyed, Quixote had finally found the key he was looking for. He put it in his pocket and took a moment to look around. He had stumbled upon a strange chamber filled with mysterious blue glowing crystals. He wondered what could possibly be inside. With the key in hand, Quixote was now ready to proceed to the Emperor's chambers. He stepped out of the chamber and onto a narrow hallway. He walked cautiously, but quickly, straining to hear the faint sound of voices coming from the Emperor's chambers. He soon reached the end of the hallway, where he was met with a large door made of steel. He reached out and grabbed the key, then inserted it into the lock. It clicked, and the door swung open. Inside, Quixote found the Emperor surrounded by his court. Everyone fell silent at the sight of the brave knight standing before them. The Emperor spoke first. "Quixote, you have proven to be a great hero. I have a task for you. I wish for you to take my daughter to a faraway planet where she will be safe from harm. I will provide you with a map and all the necessary supplies for this quest. Will you accept the task?" Quixote, not wanting to refuse a task from the Emperor, accepted the Emperor's offer. He was now set on his course for victory. Quixote and the Emperor's daughter Dulcinea set sail on a small spaceship towards the distant planet. As they flew through the stars, Quixote told Dulcinea stories of his adventures, and she listened with awe. The journey was long and arduous, but eventually they reached their destination. Quixote and Dulcinea stepped out of the spaceship and onto the planet's surface. The planet was barren and desolate, but Quixote was determined to find a safe place for Dulcinea. They explored the planet, searching for a safe haven. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon a small village. The villagers welcomed them with open arms and offered them shelter. Quixote and Dulcinea settled into the village and began to make a life for themselves. Quixote worked hard to protect the village from any danger that may come their way. One day, Quixote and Dulcinea were out exploring the planet when they stumbled upon a strange structure. It was a large metal dome with a door in the center. Quixote and Dulcinea cautiously approached the door and opened it. Inside, they found a laboratory filled with robots and strange machines.
Chapter 5. Investigating the Laboratory. Quixote and Dulcinea cautiously stepped into the laboratory. The room was filled with strange machines and robots of all shapes and sizes. Quixote and Dulcinea looked around in awe, unsure of what they were looking at. Suddenly a voice boomed from the corner of the room. "Welcome, Quixote and Dulcinea. I am Emperor Carrasco, the creator of this laboratory." Quixote and Dulcinea were shocked to hear the voice of the Emperor. He explained that he had created the robots in the laboratory to help him in his quest for justice. He had been searching for a hero to help him in his mission, and he believed Quixote was the perfect candidate. The emperor offered Quixote a chance to join him in his quest. He offered to create robotic versions of Quixote, Dulcinea, Sancho Panza, and himself to help in the mission. Quixote accepted the offer, and the emperor began to work on the robots. After a few days, the robots were complete. Quixote, Dulcinea, Sancho Panza, and the emperor's robotic versions were ready to join Quixote on his quest for justice. Quixote and the robotic versions of himself, Dulcinea, Sancho Panza, and the emperor Carrasco, set off on their quest for justice. They traveled through space, encountering all sorts of obstacles and enemies along the way. The group eventually arrived at a planet called Zoron, where they encountered a powerful robot known as Robo-Knight. Robo-Knight was determined to stop Quixote and his companions from completing their mission. Quixote and the others fought bravely against Robo-Knight, but they were no match for his strength and power. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Quixote had an idea. He asked the Emperor Carrasco to create robotic versions of himself, Dulcinea, and Sancho Panza to help in the fight against Robo-Knight. The Emperor Carrasco agreed and quickly created Robo-Quixote, Robo-Dulcinea, and Robo-Sancho. With the help of the robotic versions of themselves, Quixote and his companions were able to defeat Robo-Knight and continue on their quest for justice. The group eventually arrived at the planet of Zoron, where they encountered a powerful spaceship. The spaceship was determined to stop Quixote and his companions from completing their mission. Quixote and the others fought bravely against the spaceship, but they were no match for its strength and power. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Quixote had an idea. He asked the Emperor Carrasco to create robotic versions of himself, Dulcinea, and Sancho Panza, to help in the fight against the spaceship. The Emperor Carrasco agreed and quickly created Robo-Quixote, Robo-Dulcinea, and Robo-Sancho. With the help of the robotic versions of themselves, Quixote and his companions were able to defeat the spaceship and continue on their quest for justice. Chapter 6. The Final Battle. Quixote and his companions had finally arrived at the planet of Zoron. They were met with a fierce battle, as the planet was guarded by a powerful spaceship. Quixote and his companions fought bravely against the spaceship, but they were no match for its strength and power. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Quixote had an idea. He asked the Emperor Carrasco to create robotic versions of himself, Dulcinea and Sancho Panza, to help in the fight against the spaceship. The Emperor Carrasco agreed and quickly created Robo-Quixote, Robo-Dulcinea, and Robo-Sancho. With the help of the robotic versions of themselves, Quixote and his companions were able to defeat the spaceship and continue on their quest for justice. The group eventually arrived at the planet's core, where they encountered the ultimate enemy, the evil Emperor Carrasco. Quixote and his companions fought bravely against the Emperor, but they were no match for his strength and power. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Quixote had an idea. He asked the robotic versions of himself, Dulcinea and Sancho Panza, to help in the fight against the Emperor. The robotic versions agreed and quickly joined the fight. With the help of the robotic versions of themselves, Quixote and his companions were able to defeat the Emperor and restore justice to the galaxy. Quixote and his companions returned to their home planet, where they were welcomed as heroes. Quixote and his companions had achieved their quest for justice, and the galaxy was a better place because of it.
If you're looking for unique and innovative audio content, look no further than Sunset Made by AI. Our channel features a variety of audio novels and books that are all made using advanced artificial intelligence techniques. Whether you're looking for a thrilling mystery, a heartwarming romance, or an engaging adventure, we've got you covered. Each story is carefully crafted by our AI system to provide an immersive and unforgettable listening experience. So sit back, relax, and let Sunset Made by AI transport you to a world of endless possibilities. Welcome to the future of storytelling.